So I created this channel for men like me who were raised without fathers. But honestly, the guys who do have a father in the home who's absent experience many of the same challenges. And I think some aspects of their upbringing can be even worse than ours. So I thought I'd make a video just comparing the two life setups and really speak into the issues that these men face when the father is there but isn't actually involved. So, firstly, what do I mean when I say an absent father? This could be someone who isn't at home much, who doesn't really plan activities with you, who doesn't really make the decisions in the household, and doesn't really involve himself in your life, isn't quite up to date with what's going on in your day, and just isn't there to provide the necessary advice that would actually help guide you as you grow up. Why does this happen? Well, there are three big reasons. The first and the most common one is work related. Your father might be out of the home most of the time with work and travel, being the main breadwinner, and as a result, he's not physically present to be involved in your life as much. The second is your father might be living a toxic lifestyle that takes him away from the family. He might be indulging in alcohol and drug use, he might be going out and neglecting the household. He might even be cheating on your mother. So that kind of sets a negative example for you. And the third reason is, and this is probably the darkest one, is your father is a conditional parent. What I mean by that is he is only parenting in a style that your mother deems appropriate because maybe he's tried something in the past that she's lashed out at and he doesn't want to upset her. So now he's kind of submitting to her way of bringing you up. So, for example, let's say your mother walks in on your father roughhouse playing with you. Maybe, you're a little kid and he's throwing you around and you're having a great time together. But there's also an element of risk to him throwing you around, right? You might get hurt. And that's all your mother might see. She might think that he's responsible, that he doesn't care for your safety and tell him off. And then he'll end up feeling guilty. So then he might be less inclined to roughhouse play with you again. And this is something that in a step parent household is even more pronounced. So if the stepfather is doing this with the mother's biological children, she might have this idea in her mind that he doesn't care about the safety of the children. And she then feels this natural biological tendency to keep them safe from him because he's technically still not the father. So then he only ends up parenting in a way that she deems fit. So it seems like you're basically raised by your mother, but the standards are being enforced by two people. So this is obviously a problem because not only does that boy have to reprogram the way his mother has pushed him to think and to be, he also has to do it in spite of his father's influence. So he has to overcome both parents if he really wants to change himself to the man that he should be. Unlike in my situation or yours, where we were only raised by single mothers, we were kind of left to our own devices to write the script from scratch. Maybe these guys are having an even tougher time of it. A second problem with the dad being absent when he's away at work, so he's physically not in the home much, is that you naturally just get most of your exposure to parenting from your mother. So you just adopt her way of thinking and her obsession with safety, perhaps more than you adopt your father's competitive spirit that's innately masculine. Maybe you don't really pick up the skills that he might be able to teach you, such as DIY or sports. And you might not be in a good position to learn how to channel your natural male aggression because your mother isn't able to teach that. You might also grow up with fewer boundaries and less discipline because, by and large, boys don't tend to respect their mother's authority as much as the fathers. So you can end up just being an undisciplined, hedonistic individual growing up who isn't able to manage his life effectively. The third problem is that you might see your father submit to your mother and allow her to be the key decision maker in the household and for her to dictate entirely how you are parented. And this will paint your vision of a healthy man woman relationship dynamic. And you'll start to subconsciously adopt the submissive role in your own relationships with women, which means you're not going to garner the respect and attraction from them that you desire, which makes those relationships more likely to crash and burn. It also means that you might have a tougher time imposing healthy boundaries and having your needs met and being respected in the relationship. Having an absent father might also lead to you growing up with trust issues and insecurity. So let's say your father doesn't really make plans with you, and when he does make plans, he often has to cancel because either he's not that invested in you or he's genuinely busy with other things. But either way, as a boy, what you take away from that is that you don't matter sufficiently to your dad for him to stick to his plans or to even make plans with you in the first place. So what that translates into your adult life is you having trust issues and not being able to bond with people effectively. It will lead to you trying to find your sense of self-worth externally because you don't have the confidence and the self-assuredness that would come with being loved and cared for by a parent. So that means you'll be very needy with the women and friends in your life because you need them so much, right, to affirm your sense of self. That's going to lead to women running away from you. It's also going to lead to the social circle devaluing you and taking you for granted. And again, it's also going to be so difficult to form meaningful bonds because you'll always live with the paranoia that comes from your childhood trust issues that your woman or your friends will turn around and abandon you. So you're always going to be scared of getting too close to someone and being so open that you'll never really create sincere relationships. And it's such a sad dynamic to see. And this is effectively comparable to seeing your divorced father every couple of weeks as per the custody arrangement, right? It's effectively that, but it happens more often because you'll probably see your dad more regularly in the home. But you still have the same distance from him that he's imposing by not being reliable and caring for you as a parent. And finally, you might also be suffering from some psychological damage if you do see your parents unhappy. And if the father is absent, chances are he's also not doing enough to keep the relationship with your mother happy and fulfilled. So you might also see her unhappy on a regular basis. And when you end up looking at both your parents like this over a prolonged period of time, you start to believe that everyone who settles down in a relationship ends up being miserable, and it can really skew your view of what an adult committed relationship looks like. So you might say that that's not for you, and you might therefore avoid any sort of meaningful connection with a woman. Instead, you might choose to, well, go one of two routes. You can end up either just closing yourself off and not pursuing women at all, and indulging in other habits like porn, video games, or drugs. Or you might pursue the other extreme, which would be a hedonistic lifestyle where you're this fuck boy and you're leaving girls after a one night stand because you're scared of the commitment, because you think you'll end up miserable. Either outcome is unproductive for both you and for the women in your life. So we see that a lot of the same problems arise for men who were raised by absent fathers as they do for us who are only raised by our single mothers. And in some instances, these men have an even tougher time undoing the damage because it's been enforced by a negative male role model in the house, as opposed to us who simply didn't have one to begin with. So if you can relate to anything I've said here, if you yourself were raised by an absent father, or you have close friends who have, and you've seen the effects of this up front, then I'd be very keen to hear your stories in the comments below. You can also join our school community in our free Discord server using the links in the description, as well as book a one-to-one coaching call with me on anything to do with being raised by a single mother. I'll see you in the next video.